Hi, I'm Kim Saylor. I'm Senior Director of Fixed Ops Product Marketing at CDK. And with me, I have Dave Thomas, our Director of Content Marketing. And we're going to talk today about service customers. So, Dave, I've been in fixed ops my entire career and I love it. I think it's super important, but I'm curious to know what you're seeing out in the market. And is there a shift in the perception of fixed ops?
Yeah, it's a great question as we go into 2026, right? You know, last year was a tumultuous year for car sales, and they still managed to sell over 16 million units. Most people believe we're going to probably have a flat 2026, still sell 16 million, a little higher than that. But when a dealer sees flat sales and maybe they're not going to have the sales success in the front
Right.
office, their minds immediately go to other areas where they can make profit.
Right.
F&I, area like that, and of course fixed ops.
Right.
So I think with this, with what 2026 will be, I think we should all expect a focus on fixed ops once again, pretty significantly.
I agree. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important that we do our service shopper study. This is the fifth year. So, was there anything about the study that stood out to you?
Now, there's lots that stands out, but unfortunately, the number one figure is the Net Promoter Score. This is how many people, customers, will recommend that dealership service department to someone else.
Uh,
The number fell really significantly to under 50, which is quite low for dealers. It only fell very little for independents, um, and so that was unfortunate.
right.
I think on the positive side, we saw a lot of good numbers with younger shoppers, so that's good. We'll talk about that. And there's some really interesting stuff around mobile, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay. So, the NPS dropped, but are there things that stood out about the dealership that made them stand apart from the competitors?
Yeah, when you think of why people go to a dealership for their service versus others, it's interesting. The price isn't the thing anymore.
Right.
It's the existing relationship that service customer has with that dealership. What does that mean?
Yeah.
That's where they bought the car. They're going back for service. The number dropped a little bit, but it's still three quarters of service customers are going back to that dealership.
Yeah.
And like many of the things we see in the study, the number's higher the younger the generation. So the people coming back the most are Gen Z, the youngest.
Okay.
So that's really interesting. So by far, that's where dealers have strength. That they sell the car, people come back to service it, and then in a circular kind of fashion, those happy service customers are much more likely to buy from that dealer as well. So they've got to work on the front office, they got to work on the back office, and it keeps going and going.
Yeah, so the relationship is critical. So, buy the car, continue to give them a great service experience so that they come back and buy their next car.
Yes, that's it.
Huge important. So, what if that's what sets them apart? What's the allure of, say, mobile service?
Yeah, so we saw huge growth in the MPS for mobile service. Now, truth be told, there weren't a lot of mobile people in the survey because it's a new thing.
Right.
But they really like mobile service. So that MPS went up to about 64, I want to say. So it went almost the same as independence.
Wow.
And what they love is convenience.
Right.
This is the one issue a dealership has is they can't be everywhere. Dealership's a big place, can only be in a certain location,
Yeah.
and you could pass 10 independents to get to your dealership, right? So what mobile's doing on a positive side for dealers, if they want to take advantage of it themselves, they bridge that gap. There's no more 10 independents between you and the customer. You're at the customer's house
Right.
with that mobile
Right.
service. So the people that like mobile, they love that convenience factor, number one by far.
Yeah, I had a dealer tell me that it's allowing him to really expand his servicing area. A customer will drive far to buy the car, but they don't want to drive that far to get their car serviced, so they're still able to
Right.
service all those customers.
Right.
So you mentioned the younger shoppers. So what did you see about Gen Z in this study? Was there anything that stood out?
Oh, everything about Gen Z stood out in the study. It was really interesting. Um, one thing to kind of study. We had 2,000 customers do this
Right.
study, huge study,
Yeah.
and it did lean primarily to boomers, to the older. They filled out the most. Now, boomers are the largest spending block in the country, so they're very important. And If you've ever been in a service department waiting room, lots of boomers.
Right.
So we can't forget our boomers, and that's why we survey 2,000 people and cover everything. But on the Gen Z side, they are much more likely to get recall work done, to set appointments online versus the phone. Across the board, they just act differently than the dealers do, and they buy more products. It
Wow.
turns out from the service department as well.
Yeah, that's surprising. I mean, that I guess in some ways it's surprising, but I think also, in my mind, it doesn't seem like a Gen Z is as likely to fix it themselves. So they're a lot more
Correct.
likely to go to the dealership to
Yeah,
get that work done.
that is totally correct. And now that one of the negative things about Gen Z is it is the group that has the least amount of money.
Right.
So they will buy when they come in, but what they say is they're only buying enough to keep the car running.
Okay.
And where we saw most people gravitate to was they're putting in enough money to retain value and keep that car running more for that value side, not just to it can't be
Yeah.
left stranded, right?
Yeah.
So most people are saying I want to take care of my investment, and Gen Z is saying I just need a car to get to work
Yeah.
and to school. Yeah.
Was there anything different that you saw in this study relation to Gen Z around the scheduling piece?
Oh, very much so. So service scheduling is a big topic in the industry right now. There's a lot of AI going on, virtual
Right.
assistants. We know that here at
Right.
CDK quite well. So 60% of people overall use the phone,
Right.
and not as many use a website. 40% of Gen Z uses a website to set their scheduling.
Okay.
So they act very differently. So in the survey, we go through a lot of pain points with the phone system. Not everyone runs into a pain point when they call, but when they do, the pain points are pretty significant. So Gen Z is not even experiencing that 40% is not even running into those problems. They're going right through the website. So very different on the scheduling side of things.
So we know that Gen Z is heavily rely on online reviews, and
Mm.
in the dealership world, online reviews have been important for a long time. Was there anything that we found out about online reviews in the study?
Yeah, so that large boomer group that we surveyed definitely impacted the overall number on how many people rely on online reviews. So it was in the 50% range overall. Each generation, as it gets younger, that number goes up steep. It is a
Wow.
steep incline. So Gen Z, it's in the 80% range, relying on those online reviews, and it makes sense because if you're a boomer, you've been around, you know where you're going, whether it's a
Right.
dealer or independent, you're set.
Right.
And the younger people get, the more likely they will be to try new dealers, independent shops, and look at those online reviews.
So there's been a lot of recalls in service, and so what kind of information do we find out about recalls in the study?
Yeah, recalls. I can't think of another area, well, besides tariffs, that got as much attention as recalls last year. Certain automakers out there had a very high volume of recalls. A lot of EVs have recalls. So recalls were a really hot topic last year. Dealers are dealing with it. So that's why we focused on it a little bit more this year in the study. And about a third of all respondents, so those 2,000 people, a third got a recall notice.
Wow.
And 9 out of 10 got it done. So kudos.
Right.
But what I thought was really interesting and what kind of shows where service advisors can really come into play is 40% got the recall work done and bought something else from the service department. So they
Interesting.
might have scheduled it in time with a oil change or moved up an oil change or
Right.
rotation, but maybe the recall was something under the hood. And when they went in for the recall, they said, "Oh, you might need a new belt too." So it does drive additional revenue, and it's something for service advisors to really take heed with because people will pay for it. They will opt in for that service.
Yeah, that's so it's important. Dealers are always looking at a way to get customers back in, and while you don't necessarily want recalls, it's a great opportunity to bring those customers in, build that relationship that we talked about. That is what keeps customers coming back into service.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, from the study or just from your experience, in the industry, what do you think that dealers are really looking for when it comes to AI for fixed operations?
AI is, again, a big buzzword around NADA this year and everywhere, really. I mean, it's not even just our industry, it's everywhere, right? People are worried about it taking your jobs or
Right.
things like that. But the interesting thing, we ran an AI study recently, and about 40% of dealers are using AI at their dealership right now. 77% of that group is actually integrating AI into their existing systems and technology that they use at their dealership. However, it is way more focused on the front office than the
Right.
back office. So it's about 40, I want to say it's 48% of use in the front office and only 25% in service.
Wow.
So we know, obviously here at CDK, we know there's some great AI on the service side that dealers could be using, but it seems like they're not focused on that. They think AI is something for sales only. But that 25% is probably getting a lot out of it.
Wow. Yeah. So that's interesting. And s- someone from fixed ops, it surprises me that it's as low as it
Yeah.
is. So that's something to keep in mind when I'm talking to dealers. And so this study's been great. Really interesting information about Gen Z in particular, because I think it's important for dealers to really pay attention to that group because they are your upcoming
Yeah.
customers in the dealership. So thanks for talking about this study, and I look forward to doing it again next year.
Yeah. I'll be here.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you.